Alrighty, folks. Welcome back to the Mushing Alaska podcast. We're your hosts, Brendan and Sean, and we're excited for this next episode. We are, it's unique with the doing the recordings. Like Sean and I live in Atlanta in Georgia, and it's 4 hours difference from Alaska, and it's always unique coordinating doing the podcast. But to take it even another level today, our next guest is coming to us from Australia.
From the future.
From the future. We're recording this on a Thursday. He's already living in a Friday, man. It's crazy. But anyways, without wasting any more time, welcome to the podcast, Christian Turner. How you doing today?
I'm really good. Thanks for having me, guys. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Australia, and I'm wearing a t-shirt. And it's winter.
Nice. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it's a beautiful sunny day here in Anchorage. It's like high 50s, Fahrenheit. That's what they say here up here. And I'm sure, Brennan, you got a little warmer than that over there in Atlanta.
Yeah, we got you guys smoked. I think we were probably like 80 degrees today. It was mostly overcast and rainy, so it didn't get too warm. It probably got warmer, but yeah, I mean, we're in full on summer. It's about to be like 90s and like humid. It's really can be long summers here in Georgia. That's for sure. So,
all right. So I just want to firstly, Christian, can I give you my best Australian accent?
Oh, baby, Here we go. Oh, I knew this was going to happen.
I'm going to just like introduce you in an Australian accent. Okay. So welcome, guys, to the podcast. We have our guest today here is Christian Turner, and he ran the 2014, 15, and 23 Iditarod. He's a 3-time finisher, and we're really excited to have you on today. How do you think? How did I do? A little more Kiwi?
Outrageous. Spot on. If a dingo had my baby, I'd probably call it Sean.
Oh, yes.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm curious, like, how hard is it for you to do an American accent?
I've been racing the Iditarod for 75 years lately, and I go through a kayak, and sometimes I can get some salmon, sometimes I can get shingles.
Wow.
That was great. That was really good.
Oh, that's great.
Nice. I love that. We did, and Sean, sometimes we plan things, but that was not planned. At least I didn't know that was coming. But I literally in my head, like Sean has over the years, he kills the accents. So I was like, this is going to be a perfect opportunity for him to do an accent. So
yeah, we have a lot of Australian visitors here in Alaska. It's a big part of the tourism market. And I've worked in tourism for a long time. So I've definitely been around. I've never been to Australia, but I've definitely been around some Australian accents. And then I watched Flight of the Conchords for a while, and I know they're Kiwis, but it's just a slight little,
they just have that annoying twang, even more annoying than ours.
Yeah, it's like, is it like, it's like a friendly kind of rivalry, but sometimes there's a little tension between you guys? There's like,
yeah, there's like our adopted little brothers.
Oh, it's cute, those little guys down there, huh?
Yeah. New Zealand is a beautiful place. It reminds me a lot of, sort of the Talkeetna area. The whole of New Zealand is just like Talkeetna.
Yeah, my cousins that are born and raised here, one of them moved down to New Zealand, and their parents are super fond of visiting there. So I've heard just like from a lot of people up here, like New Zealand's kind of like similar. There's a lot of similarities in Alaska. Obviously not the size, but just like having the mountains and the water and the fjords and the glaciers and pretty cool stuff down there. But yeah, dude. So crazy 2023 Iditarod bid for you. Like I'll never forget seeing Mitch comment, Mitch Seavey, 3-time Iditarod champion, and this guy's one of the perennial participants in this race for the last 30 plus years. And he says, out a message like, hey, my dogs, they're not running Iditarod. I don't know what to do with them in March. And your Facebook comment on it was, I could run them on Iditarod, maybe. I don't know. And
no, that's a take on it. But basically, he put out, because he had someone that was going to run it, and he put out a little video saying all revved up and ready to go. And I was just sitting on the couch watching TV, like watching the rugby game. And I said, "Oh, I'll run them," like just offhandedly. And within seconds, it wasn't tentative. I was just joking. And then, within seconds, I had a personal message saying, "Let's make it happen." I was like,
"Oh, wow, that is insane! That's amazing, man."
Yeah, so I wrote back. I'm like, "Oh, look, like, give me a little bit of time. I got to talk to my wife. We had like a 2-month-old baby."
Yeah. Okay. So I got to go there for a second, because I'm over here. I've got a 15-month-old right now. And I'm just wondering what that conversation was like with your wife, because I don't know. I mean, I'm not doing anything like Iditarod, but I don't know if I could have gotten my wife to sign off on, yeah, sure, honey, go off and do your thing for the Iditarod for a couple of months, you know?
Yeah, well, let's just say my brownie points are extinguished for the rest of my life.
Yeah, you can't really ask for another. Hey, got another 12-week opportunity.
Well, that was the thing. We agreed on like 6 weeks. We said, "Oh, look, I can go 4 weeks. At least I'll get to know the dogs' names, and then just do the race, and then jump on the plane straight home." And then it pushed out to just like a couple of days over 7 weeks. But that was achievable. And straight away, I turned to Christy after Mitch messaged me and was like, Christy being my wife, "Well, what do you think?" And she goes, "Oh, well, let's sleep on it." And we wrote a pros and cons list of, what she'll have to deal with. She was on my maternity leave, so it's the best time for it to happen.
That's right.
And we had a pretty good support. We have a pretty good support network here in Australia. Her family's like half an hour away, so they could look after Aluka and help her out. But now Christy's back at work. It wouldn't work now. Like if it was 6 months from now, or if it was right now, it wouldn't be a possibility. It just happened to fall in the right time.
Remind us what the maternity leave. Please make us as Americans jealous. Is it a full year?
Yeah, so you either get a year of half pay or 6 months of full pay.
Wow.
So half pay is a pretty good, you're not doing anything, you're just at home. Like, I know you're doing stuff with the baby, but like, you don't need that full income, and you get a whole year off. So Christy decided to go for the 6 months. And so she's back at work for a couple of months now. Weeks.
Yep. Speaking of it, like Sean and I, it's funny. Like, I used to be a tour guide in my previous job. I used to work at CNN, and there used to be people that would visit from Australia, and they told me that leave, and it's like in America, the maternity leave, it depends on what kind of company you work for and what their policy is, essentially. And so it's amazing that you guys have that. So I just wanted to go there for a second. Sorry to take a right turn, but Sean.
The crazy thing is she can go back to work and get pregnant and get it again in like 9 months.
Right.
Oh, nice.
And I'm like, no, you stay at work.
No, if you could time it for like 2025, Iditarod,
There you go.
That's the move. You just have to time it with the Iditarod in mind.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I'll be thinking about that. Yeah.
You got your priorities straight. Good. Yeah, that's like the thing that I think that a lot of people struggle to grasp. Like, people always ask me like over and over. It's been 2 years since I ran Iditarod, and they'll be like, "You gonna run it again?" And it's like, there's almost like a tone of like, yeah, like you just sign up and you run it again. And I'm like, no, like I want to, and people want to run it again, but it's like you got to have like, you have so many things going on in your own life, of course. And then there's just like the fact that like, all right, am I going to buy a property and a dog truck and a bunch of dogs and start my own kennel? Or is there going to just happen to have this perfect Mitch Seavey kind of and Christian Turner situation that happens to pop up right when I happen to be ready and available? It's just like so many, it's a lottery ticket almost, like to have, the experience that you need, like Christian has, to be able to get the team like safely down the trail and care for them properly and feed them like they need to be fed and not overextend them based on how their training is. And then you have all those scheduling conflicts and the availability of the dogs and the finances of it and the generosity of your sponsors. And I saw you had a GoFundMe page that you got a few people throwing $50 here, $100 there, and that stuff adds up. And you need to get all this to come together to make the dream come true. And when you sign up for the race, you really don't even know if it's going to happen. Like you just sign up. Like that's just like step one, right?
Yeah.
So you need steps 2 through like 40 to go right before you actually get to the start line.
It was like having a backer like Mitch Seavey makes it incredibly easy. As you know, having Dallas behind you, running things and having all those bits of equipment, the dog truck, the dogs, blah, 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 all those things make it easier having someone. But then you have got to give them something that they want. And Mitch wanted his dogs running down the trail in my circumstance. And then say for you when you ran for Dallas or for when I ran Dallas wanted his puppies running down the trail and getting the experience. And so that's what you're providing them. And you're providing them 6 months of, or if not more, basically slave labor in the cold. but it's not for, you're not going to win the race. You're doing it because you love dog mushing and you love being with the dogs out on the trail and seeing things that other people aren't ever going to be able to see in their lives. But this particular situation, 2023, Mitch had someone that was going to run his team. He had a back injury, so he was unable to. And he is getting on in years. So he's not unrealistic about possibly retiring forever. But he's got some great dogs, and they're all coming up. They were sort of 3 to 4 years old, and a couple of really old guys that Dallas had and had given back to Mitch. And so he just wanted to see what they could do. And everything was ready, basically training-wise, for this team to run. And then the person that was running was unable to as well. It was going to take the team. And so it fell into my lap. And, I'm qualified. And also with all that GoFundMe, and I got a sponsorship here for my entry fee. So my entry fee was covered by a sponsorship. And so economically for me, it was just missing out on the work that I wasn't going to be doing. Other than that, it didn't cost me a dime.
Yeah, that's like a really amazing fortune. And also, but like you've also, earned the ability to have that opportunity. Yes, you had that fortune of the right time, right place, but it's not like they don't ask just anyone to do it. And like I said, like you said, you're providing this dog's a positive experience down the trail that they can build on for whoever is taking them down the trail next year. Could end up that Mitch sends some dogs with another musher at another kennel, but those dogs are Iditarod veterans, right? So that means that they're that much more likely to be able to be on a more competitive team moving forward.
Yeah. And that team, if things had gone a little differently, or maybe if I'd spent more than 4 weeks with them beforehand, I'm sure that team could have been further up the positions wise. It's a race. Lots of different things happen in the race. But for the future, that team is as strong, or will be as strong, especially with the puppies coming up. The 2-year-olds just finished as well with Gerhardt, the South African guy.
Oh, yeah.
They finished strongly. Some really nice males in that group. And you got to take into consideration, Mitch lost he didn't lose, but he donated his whole A team to Dallas. So there's a massive cavity in his kennel. There's 16 dogs that I think he donated that aren't there anymore, and that's the core of the adult dogs. So to come 13th and possibly you could have done better with that team without really any experienced dogs was pretty good for Mitch's kennel.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to work with the years that I was at Dallas's were the right after when Mitch had sold his core of his team to Dallas and was taking, I guess he took that year off maybe as well. And those guys were just like, I mean, it was like watching a train go down the tracks. You're like, it doesn't seem, you think about how dynamic a dog and their personality and their skill sets can be, but like they were just a solid unit that you like drive and you're like, wow, like this just looks so easy to them, and whereas you take these, unrefined dogs that are have a ton of potential, but they haven't put in those miles and the quality and quantity of miles that you need to get there. And they still have that drive and enthusiasm, but when you see them moving down the trail, you can see there's a lot of inefficiencies, and there's they're driving maybe a little bit too hard, and they're going over to bite the willow branch and mark the trail when they're going up the hill. So yeah, that was evident when I was working with those dogs. So you got to Alaska, you got to run the dogs probably 100 or a couple hundred miles or whatever in 4 weeks and learn their names. But the dogs are used to being around a bunch of different people. Mitch shows up, and there's Larry, and there's Gerhard, and there's Lara, and there's all these people that are around the dogs. And so, it's not unreasonable to have another person showing up. They're used to it. And you get on the trail, and had you been on a dog sled for a 20-mile run since 2015?
When I went to Norway, I think it was 2017.
Oh, you went to Norway with Dallas?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So they took Dallas asked me to come over that first time, and so me, Jesse, and him were like these three musketeers. We went over there and ran some dogs for a while there. Yeah, that was fun. So that was probably the last time I'd done any actual real dog mushing.
Nice.
But here in Australia, it doesn't compare at all. It's I do a bit of dry land, so I ride my mountain bike with my German shorthair pointer, racing at 20 miles an hour in front.
That sounds pretty fun, though.
Yeah, it's good fun. But yeah, basically I got there, spent half an hour. This is at Mitch's kennel. Spent half an hour in the kennel, looking around, unpacked my bag, and then I took out the dogs with Calvin Doherty, Larry's son, who had been there training the dogs, putting the miles on the dogs all preseason. And I think he qualified as well this season. Sorry. So he'd done his qualifiers, he did the Copper Basin, he did the Willow 300 and some other race. I can't remember which one it was. So he was qualified with the dogs. He knew them pretty intimately. And with Mitch, he's got that many dogs. If one, he's got to sit out, you're going to have a full team to run every day anyway.
Right.
So he said, let's go out. We did 20 miles. And then I was like, okay, well, sled driving is the same as it's always been. And then, I just went from there. Me and Mitch figured out what was the best for the team to do for that 4 weeks for me to get a good series. We did like a mini Iditarod sort of around about the end of the Yukon Quest, which is early Feb.
Mm-hmm.
So a little mini Iditarod. I just went straight into 500 miles or whatever it was.
Did you do the?
Okay.
Wait. What was the mini series that y'all did? Was surrounded by the quest? Did you do that?
No, it was during the same time.
Oh, during the same time. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
But okay, all right. Can I gotta get in here for a second. So you haven't been on a sled in 6 years, and you just get on and you do one run, and then you go and do a 500-mile series.
Yeah.
And there's no so Sean said you're 34, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So
which is still young, for the record. Let the record show.
Yeah, I'm in my prime.
So I'm I guess back home, do you train? The thought of going literally from nothing to a mini Iditarod series sounds a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
How did you handle that?
I was I am physically fit, and I was training before coming over because I had 2 months to, prepare before I was flying over to Alaska. So I was, I ride my bike every morning. And I play soccer for a local team. I'm not unfit by any stretch of imagination. But the biggest thing was just getting used to the temperature, because I went from middle of summer here in Australia, and I live in the tropics, so it's 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 100% humidity.
Yeah.
And then just luckily it wasn't too brutal. This winter was quite warm, by all accounts. Although I missed, I didn't get a cold snap. I think the coldest it got in Sterling was like 25 below.
Wow. And Sterling, I would say that's pretty cold for Sterling, right? I mean, that's down pretty far south.
Yeah, but like during the middle of the day, warms up to 0.
Right.
Like, I don't know. It wasn't that cold. But yeah, that and then, the only way to practice for sleep deprivation is not sleep. So straight into the 500 miles and not sleep.
Nice. But you were...
I literally didn't. I made sure I didn't sleep that whole time.
But you also were 2 months into parenthood, right?
Yeah. So
you got. Hey, listen, I know about that now. There's some real sleep depth going on that. So, okay. So you had a little practice with being, parenthood, and then you just went straight in, and then, like, I mean, are you not like? How did you respond physically? How did you respond to that series?
I was like, I knew I was there to do a job and get to know these dogs and get back on the bike as quick as I can. And I love dog mushing. So I was sort of just running on a high the whole way. And I guess that high died at Shaktoolik.
Oh, God. We were looking at your schedule.
We were looking at that, actually.
Yeah, we were checking it out. And we were I didn't want to ask right away. So glad you brought it up. But yeah, what happened there? So you left and came back, and yeah, what was up?
So my guys got really sick from Iditarod onwards. I'm putting it out there. There's always that everyone says, "Oh, my team got sick, so I didn't do well." But from Iditarod, they started having real bad diarrhea and weren't really eating. And from there, I started dropping dogs that was getting sicker and sicker. And by the time I got to Shaktoolik, it was like I stayed longer than I wanted to in Unalakleet. Like basically from Iditarod on, it was sort of like driving an ambulance. And my trailer wasn't there for trailering dogs. It was there for holding sickies. And I did what I could. And then by Shaktoolik, it all sort of just came to a head and they needed more rest, basically. I went out and I said, this isn't going to do these guys any good, pushing them across the ice. And that's the sort of musher I am. Like, yeah, I probably would have come 8th or 9th or whatever it was. But I was like, it's not good for the dogs. So I took them back. And then I had a sleep and I went out and I looked at them and I was like, there was no one out other than me. So I just waited and waited and waited. Then went out again.
Did the thought of going to because like you went out for like an hour. If you had gone on another hour, you could have got that shack. Was that on your mind, or was like did you hit some sort of circumstances that you were like, no?
It was definitely a possibility to go to there, but the original plan was to go there through Shack anyway. Okay. And I got to Shaktoolik and was like, look, these guys aren't doing so great. And if you look on the times, they said it took me, my GPS stopped between Unalakleet and Shaktoolik, and they said it took me 8.5 hours. And I was like, holy shit. I was looking at everyone else's times, and then they adjusted it while I was asleep and took 2 hours off that.
Yeah, Unalakleet to Shaktoolik says 5:47.
Yeah, 2.5 hours off that. But originally, and they even posted that on Facebook, oh, we've made a mistake at times. And I was like, well, these guys need a massive break here. Like, I don't think I can keep going. And my GPS was done. Like, it was frozen. So I was like, all right, I'll just have a bit of a break here. And then I went out and they didn't improve after the bit of a break. And so I was like, there's no point in going to the shelter cabin and sitting there for 15 hours with the team with no food.
Yep, that's fair.
Like in the wind, I may as well go back to where there's free straw and bulk food. And so I did. And at that point, I just wanted the dogs to be happy. And I'd been model coddling them and changing the schedule since Iditarod. So it was sort of like, what's the point? I'm not going to win this thing. The best outcome for this team is to be happy and finish strongly.
Did you feel like there was ever a chance where the team was not gonna like finish? Was that ever like a thought that crept in, or you just knew, okay, we got to give them more of a break? And
I had that thought: if I keep going here, if I don't turn around, because, I had probably half the team had pretty bad diarrhea, and yeah, they were picky eaters. But if it's not fun for the dogs, it's not fun for me. And that's the sort of person I am. If I was in first place and the same thing happened, I would still turn around. Like people say they don't like turning the team around and going back to a checkpoint, but I don't know. They're not my dogs either. Like, I don't own those guys. I'm not going to force them to do something that they weren't wholeheartally enjoying.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole lure of this whole lifestyle is like you're doing something that the dogs love doing. And how lame would it be to run the Iditarod with a group of dogs that's not into running the Iditarod? And, so yeah, when you see them feeling a little under the weather and having those stomach bugs and they're not eating and they're doesn't look good coming out either. It's clearly that's a good adjustment to make. And we really saw like a lot of that this year of people making those like adjustments. And maybe I haven't followed this race like for like since its beginning, of course, but I just feel like there's just these like the standards just keep getting, higher and higher of it's like people don't make those pushes as much nowadays. And yeah, it's good to turn the team around, give them some rest, build their strength back up and continue on down the trail. What was like, go ahead.
I would agree with you, but I would also point out that some people maybe take that decision after the fact. You know what I mean? Like they've gone too far.
Right. And there's also the people that this is where I'm at personally is that I think this is what I'm battling with in my brain when I'm mushing is that I think that they're hitting that like a point where maybe I should head back and rest a little longer, or maybe I should not booty them up quite yet because, whatever, they're curled up sleeping and they look like they could use an extra hour or they didn't eat as much as I wanted them to. And right. And so there's like those people in the back that's why I'm in the middle and back of the pack is because I'm like, well, I should give them that little extra hour. Right. So you have those beginners having that mentality, myself being in that. Then you have, people that like you and like Jesse Holmes he was like up there in front and he was like, nah, I lost my speed. I don't like what I'm seeing. And he probably
he did the right thing. And then he was able to get that speed back and push fourth, I think.
What's that?
He flew at the end there. I think he ended up coming fourth.
Yeah, he finished really strong. Fifth, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so he made the right decision, was able to get the speed back. But some people make the decision and are unable to get, like they've run the red line and they've gone over. And once you go over in a race, there isn't enough time. Even if you gave them 24, you're not going to get that speed back. And so I think I got like the second or the third fastest time from safety. And when I finished, I was the fastest time.
Damn.
And, I didn't hold that as the best thing ever, but at least I'm happy that I am not walking into or walking out of White Mountain. I in my opinion, I think there needs to be some things that maybe change in the rules where you can't take 2 hours to leave White Mountain, or Unicleat or whatever. Just so, I don't know, who am I to change the rules of the Iditarod? I'm just an Australian musher. But as I said, I would prefer to take a team back and sit there for 8 hours and give them another rest and some more food, then leave at 8.5 miles an hour, then, not do that and walk for 5 miles an hour.
Right. Yeah, it's a super complex conversation, and I think, a lot of those people would say something along the lines, oh, they just kind of need to warm up or whatever and get moving. And then you see their speed go up, but that's, maybe that's not good enough of an answer. And, a lot of times you see some mushers in the middle to beginning of the race, or even they're racing before Caltag, which is just not, you kind of want to set yourself up to be within striking distance, but you really don't want to be like making race moves and like cutting rest
Well, there's some teams that can race the whole race, and they'll say they're setting themselves up to race at the end, but those teams are able to do those times and do those rests because they're awesome teams. Whereas other teams that aren't at the same caliber, or mushers that aren't at the same caliber, they're having to race at the start, and they're actually racing. They're racing like it's a 300, 500-mile race to keep up with those other teams that are just positioning themselves.
Right. There's different levels of dogs' talent, of their conditioning, mentally and physically. Definitely. Yeah. And it's like, and what you're seeing out there and what we're seeing here in the comfort of our homes, we are only getting just this little tiny, glimpse of what you really can't capture from such a remote and cold setting. By the way, did you hear that Jill Biden visited Bethel today?
I saw that. Yeah,
I don't know who that is.
She's the president's wife.
Oh, the first lady, is it?
Yep. Yeah. That's what they call it. I believe that's what they call it these days. Yeah. And
the first lady. Excuse me.
But yeah, she came to try to help with promoting better internet in rural places. So that would be maybe something that leads to some better coverage, better connections in some of these villages, and being able to see some things. But yeah, when you're out there, you're seeing, what the dog team looks like when you're at a checkpoint for 5 hours and you go in and you're taking care of your dogs. You're always taking a peek over and seeing what other teams look like and what other mushers are doing, and seeing how long they rested and how long it took for them to get to the checkpoint and where they're trending in the right or wrong direction.
One thing I'll say about this race, like even though we had 34, 35 competitors, there was definitely a sense of camaraderie between all the mushers. There was no antagonistic behavior. There was no sort of I'm just here to race. Everyone was talking. Everyone was, sharing what they had with each other. Like it was a pretty good community of people. And then racing's definitely there. Everyone's still trying to do the best they can and win the race, or even if you're not trying to win the race, you're still trying to get down the trail as quick as you and your team can in the manner that you think is best for the team, and that's really up to you, isn't it?
Yeah, I felt like there was a lot of good stories this year of Hunter helping out Eddie when he fell off, or just like a lot of times where you just maybe the old school racers that are
that's still a sore point for me.
That's a sore point. Oh, okay. Let's go there then for a second.
So I picked him up first.
Okay.
I found him. There's a random headlight bobbling along on the river, and I found him, picked him up. I already had a dog in the bag, carried him for 2 hours, and then my speed went horribly down. I'm like, I can't carry you anymore, man. Like, I know it's cold, but what I'll do is I'll use my phone, and I called Mark Nordman on my satellite phone. Spoke to Mark Nordman, got Dallas Seavey, who was at the checkpoint, Eagle Island, to drive his snow machine out and rescue his team. And then I left him there. I'm like, Dallas is going to bring the snow machine and pick you up. The team's fine, all good. I got to keep going. This is a race. I've done what I can. Then 5 minutes later, Hunter came past and picked him up and took him in to the checkpoint. But before he got to the checkpoint, Dallas came and picked him up on the snow machine, overtook me, drove him in. So his team got there an hour earlier than I did, and then he still beat me there. Had a little break, got on his team, and left.
Damn.
And then Hunter wins the sportsmanship award.
Okay. All right. I think I see where you're coming from.
I was like, oh man, I just sound like a sore loser. So that's unsportsmanship like. So I'm like, whatever.
Did you tell him how you felt at the banquet afterwards?
I waited for someone to say something, and eventually in his speech he did thank me. So thanks for thanking me. But yeah, I was pretty dirty for a little while there. I probably am still a bit salty.
Pretty dirty. Yeah, dude. That's that you definitely helped him out big time, and I don't. It's like
So
do you think that he gained a
For this-
competitive advantage? Is that what you're saying? Or
definitely, he beat both of us in by going on a snow machine. And
was he
someone
already
being-
ahead of you, or were y'all ahead of him?
He was ahead of me, but he fell asleep and fell off his sled.
Right. Okay.
And then his team got bedded down by someone else and was sitting at the checkpoint. And then he got a snow machine ride in. So his team has been resting for quicker than whatever, longer than they would have originally. And so it's sort of like there's no fault by falling asleep and falling off your team. Everyone should do it.
Right. Yeah. I remember, I've lost my axe in the Quest 300, and that same race in the 1,000, somebody had fallen asleep and fallen off their sled, and on the way into Dawson City, and I got a $100 fine, and they didn't get like any penalty at all. And I was like, I just lost an axe. Like I didn't lose 12 dogs, It's like, I'll see. I'm gonna see.
Like, I would not change what I did. That I would still pick him up and carry him for as long as I can. And I think it would have been a different situation if I wasn't already carrying a dog.
Sure.
And I should have thought in my circumstance straight away. I should have said, look, I can't carry you, but I'll make the phone call now, because it took me from 8 miles an hour to 4.5 miles an hour for 2 hours.
Jesus,
that drops you back a fair bit.
Yeah, that's dude.
You're walking, and then and then the sportsmanship thing. I was just like, oh, whatever. Like, if anything, they should have split the award because we both did exactly the same thing.
Right.
We both carried him along the river.
Yeah, that's a tricky, like you pick someone up and you're like, I'm sure like I'm always nice to a fault with people, I feel like, and it sounds like you're kind of similar, where like you probably should have just been like, yo, dude, here's a Snickers bar and some water, like I'll give you a call, like you're gonna be fine, you're like, okay, dogs are safe.
If it wasn't 3 a.m. and -30 on the river, I probably would have said, sucks to be you, man, I'll see you later.
Yeah.
But
it's hard to
I should have just made that phone call in hindsight. But that's the thing about Iditarod. There's always hindsight. And then I've thought about, after a race, even talking to Mitch and Dallas about it, after every race, even they say when they win, they're still thinking, oh, what could I have done better? What could I have done different? And this particular one, the biggest things for me with that time, I shouldn't have picked him up. I should have just made a phone call for him and made sure his team was okay, because the team's more important than him anyway.
It's true.
Because I didn't get anything for it. And you know what? The funny thing was, at the end, Pete Kaiser comes past and he goes, oh, well, you should just put a sign on the back of your sled saying $3,000 lifts along the Yukon. When you win the sportsmanship award, you get $3,000. I'm like,
yeah, that's when you're just sitting on a sled for 2 hours is a long time. You're on the sled with Eddie for 2 hours. So like after 20 minutes, you're just like, so, crazy weather we're having, huh? And he's like, what, like, is it just?
Oh man, I was kicking, I was pedaling my guts out the whole time.
Gotcha.
And, yeah, he was just sad. He was worried, as you would be.
Yeah, I'm sure he wasn't in a great. Was he probably in a little bit mentally difficult?
He was pretty sweaty as well, because he'd been walking in all his winter gear, and he reckons he ran for a while chasing the team. So he was a bit sweaty, a bit cold.
So when you found him, he was just walking, and you just didn't even think twice about it.
Well, now he goes. I'm like, what's going on, man? I didn't know who it was at first because he was just shining his light in my face. Like, what's going on? And he goes, oh, I fell asleep. I lost my team. I'm like, gosh. Oh no! All right, well, jump on.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? What are we going to do here? I can't leave you. And I should have thought that probably sleep deprived and tired, and I was probably falling asleep at the same time. Gotcha. But I should have just made that call to Mark Nordeman straight away, and then the whole process, because that 2 hours, the snow machine can take that 2 hours a lot quicker than I can.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. Fair enough.
But, yeah. It is what it is, and yes, that's why I was still salty on the side path there.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Fair enough.
All right, that is fair, dude.
We appreciate the tea a little bit there. So just to kind of wrap up the race, like how was the coast for you? You know, like after Shaktoolik, once you had
short rest.
Once you had your long rest.
We regathered at Shaktoolik. I don't know how long I was there for, probably maybe 12 hours. It was a while. It wasn't really a storm yet to talk about. So people were like, "Oh, was there a big storm? You couldn't get across the ice?" I'm like, "Well, it was blowing, but it wasn't that. That's not why. It was because we were slowing down, and a lot of the team had diarrhea. Basically, they weren't looking as happy as they should look. That's the main reason I pulled back and stopped there, turned around and went back. And the reason I didn't go to the shelter cabin was because there was extra food and straw at Shaktoolik. So, regathered there, and then Nick, I think maybe Jesse Roy had already gone past, and Nick Pettit was gonna take off. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go in front of you, and he'd been doing the same thing since the river. He'd been doing like 10-hour breaks and then really fast runs, and then 10-hour breaks and really fast runs. So I was like, oh well, if I can keep pace with Nick, I'm doing all right. And when I finally got moving, it's hard to tell from the times. I went from Shak to Koyak in like 4.5 hours. I was doing like 11 miles an hour. It was freaking flying. And then I took a 2.5 hour break, and then shot over to Elam, 2.5 hour break, a 2 hour break, and then just kept going. Just kept moving real good. They were awesome.
So that extra time in Shak really helped them, and then they were in prime condition from there, essentially.
Yeah, well, I went from having, I think I had 9 or 10 dogs in Shaktoolik with maybe 8 of them with diarrhea. And then coming up the coast, I ended up with 2. So giving them that good break, getting more food into them. And when they're tired, they don't want to eat. When they're not eating, the diarrhea is just going to stay there. It's not going to work its way out. So, give them a bit more rest, a bit more food, and sort of flush it out. And they did that. And then just every checkpoint I went to, they were eating. They started eating really well. And then you could tell I was starting to, every cylinder was going up and up and up. I left White Mountain with 8 dogs and 8 cylinders firing.
Nice. I was trying to answer one of our fans' questions about one of our listeners' questions about dogs getting under the weather, and basically I was like, the only way to guarantee that they're not going to get a virus out there when you have several hundred dogs from all over the world, even all over Alaska, is enough. But you have people from lower 48 and Canada and the only way to really guarantee them that they're not going to get sick is you just keep them at home, right? And you just keep them in a glass box. It's
that's guaranteeing they're not getting sick while they're at home. It doesn't guarantee they're not going to get sick at the race.
No, I know. No, I'm saying that's what I'm saying. Like it's basically the only way to guarantee it is to not have them race. And it's
sort of the opposite. You need to do the opposite. You need to expose them as much as you can,
right,
to all of those viruses. And that's getting it before the race.
And that's why when I go to the bars, I don't wash my hands. I lick the doorknobs, and I'm not. Look, I only got COVID a couple times, so I think I have it figured out. But no, my point is you got to have. There's not like you can minimize the risk by having strong.
There's no silver bullet.
Right. There's no silver bullet. Like it's always in the deck. You can always draw the Joker card or whatever. But you minimize it by having a strong, physically fit team that is also running a schedule within their like skill set, and then proper diet and like that. But even then.
A lot of teams skip checkpoints and camp by themselves for the first 500 miles or whatever it is. Jesse Holmes, Brent Sass, Dallas sometimes does it as well. And that does minimize the exposure to other teams. You're obviously not going to be sleeping on straw that other dogs have been sleeping on or anything like that. But eventually you're going to have to do your 24.
Yeah.
And whether you get sick or your 24, eventually you're going to have to do an 80-mile run or a 70-mile run to Iditarod or whatever it is. And you have to stop there to resupply. And there's going to be some sort of exposure. And there's so many facets to it. Whether your dogs were exposed to that sun virus at the Copper Basin 300, awesome. They're probably going to be immune to it. the funny thing was, in my team, is I had one dog from Dallas kennel called Yak. He never.
I know
sick.
Yak.
Yeah, Yak. Yak did not get sick the whole time, and he finished with me. He ate from start to finish, never got sick, whereas everyone from Mitch's kennel did. So that was where it led me to think maybe Yak was already exposed to something.
Well, actually, I have a Yak story. One time at Dallas's, Yak got really under the weather, like exceptionally wasn't doing well. And we brought him inside and, we had consulted some veterinarians and got him on some antibiotics or something. I don't know the exact details, but he made a full recovery. But maybe that sickness led to him being
super immunity.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, and it's just a guessing game with all facets of racing. You're like, oh, was it the weather that did it? Was it the straw that we slept on? Was it the food they're eating? You never know because they can't tell you. And that's the same with an injury. It's so like a guessing game with dog mushing and dogs because they can't exactly tell you what's wrong with them.
Sure. So let's have you watched your post-race finish line interview?
No. I didn't even know there was one.
Yeah, dude, Brendan, you want to do this? Pull this up for us, dude. So I always think this is kind of fun how you get to the end of 1,000-mile journey and then they give you this 3-minute interview, and it's kind of under the Burled Arch. Yeah. Okay, do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Maybe we don't need to pull it up then.
Okay,
but I was just curious, I don't know, your demeanor on every interview. You just it's something that's common among most mushers is that you don't your highs aren't too high, your lows aren't too low. You're going through what some people would compare like a Navy SEAL mission when you just talk about the sleep deprivation and the exposure to the elements. You're almost in a survival state for a lot of this race. And you get there and you're getting asked these questions and you're just kind of, yeah, well, it was the Iditarod. And what did I finish? A couple of positions better than last time? Yeah, 13th.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Finished a couple
that
times.
Was a good race.
All
right.
You're just it's the what's going on between the ears to keep you just.
I haven't watched anyone else's before. They're not all like that.
I mean, dude, you should see Jason Mackey's, dude. His is not a negative thing, but he's so pumped, just so excited, such a high of we got to the finish line, and
Oh right, yeah.
And
so and then some people are emotional and crying and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and you were just kind of yep, it's Iditarod,
Yeah. Well, I guess yeah. It was the most exciting part of the whole race for me from just before safety to the end because I actually got to overtake Jesse Breuer. I got to do some ski poling. The dogs were good. I was having fun, but yeah, it's just the Iditarod.
Just the Iditarod.
It's such a long journey, I wasn't overly tired the whole race. I wasn't, physically depleted that much because we were just doing our thing and, ticking the boxes as they came at us.
That's wild. So you're what's we at on time so I can manage my questions accordingly?
Yeah. Well, how are you?
It's all right.
How are you doing, Christian?
She's awake, but my neighbors come past to look after her, so we're good to keep going if we need to.
All right. So I just looked at some of your other races. It seemed like this race you did mostly checkpoint camping. You only really stopped on the trail when you had those longer breaks, and maybe I thought I saw something maybe between Eagle Island and Caltag, maybe an unexpected stop there.
That was a little stop. That was trying to get them, eating and fast again. So I think that's a 66-mile run, isn't it? Or 60-mile run?
Yeah, it says 60, but the mileages on the website and what they actually are do have those slight differences.
Run. So I did a mini stop, and so mini stops generally you're supposed to get enough food in them to really keep the speed paced up. Well, that's Dallas and Mitch's theory. And I spoke to Dallas at that checkpoint, and I'm like, look, man, I don't want to walk for 60 miles. I might stop halfway. He's like, don't stop halfway. Stop a bit closer. You know, gave me a little bit of outside assistance, I guess is what he gave me. No, he said that what he would do is, you know, give him a bit of a rest, you know, 25 miles or whatever it is out of the checkpoint, quick rest in the sun, give him some food, and then just keep going. And that's what I did. I had a bit of food. I wasn't there for very long, and then just kept on trucking, and it did. It perked him up a bit, but it was still trying to maintain him through that diarrhea and through that anti-appetite.
Right. Nice. That's like I love seeing those moves where people are like, look, it's like 60, like once you get over 60, if it's hot in the day, you got a team with a stomach bug. It's like that's kind of a long run. And so yeah, like I love to see that taking that little break in there. But so my point is though, you did a lot of checkpoint stops. You really only camped when you know, between Roan and Nikolai maybe and Iditarod and Ophir, and skipped, you know, Anvik and, you know, the Ophir, or maybe you stopped there for a second. But anyways, then you go back to Dallas's and you skipped a bunch of checkpoints. I see like a lot of mostly for those 4 and 5 hour rests. You've got, and then you go back to, and then of course the rookie year, which was, you probably had some really tough go like most rookies do. I see,
that was 2014. That was just like the hell year.
That was the hell year. Yeah. The year that Alex Buto ran too. And everyone talks about that as being the worst that the trail has ever been, through the burn, the Farewell burn, and the Dalzell Gorge.
Well, it was interesting because I got to do that again this year, all that section, because 2015 we went from Fairbanks. So it's completely different race. Whereas 2014,
all river.
So there we go. I hadn't raced or been through the gorge or, you know, the burn or anything since 2014. So it's been a while. Do you want to stop or keep going?
No, we're good. We're good. Keep going.
So I hadn't been through that section since 2014. And so I was a little bit like, but it's not the same. And it was a completely different trail. It was, you know, lots of snow cover. The bridges are really nice. The rock section and the dirt section wasn't that bad at all. You know, it was just pretty cruising.
That's Sean has good analysis to go back and look at all your different runs there. One thing that he was commenting on as well was that essentially you have run the race 3 different times and have 3 different routes.
Yeah.
So
that was another reason that I wanted to come over and do it this time, because I got to do the part. I hadn't been to Iditarod yet. I hadn't done that route and seen the ghost town, which was cool. But so now, I guess I've seen all of the possible trail.
That's pretty cool. Like Sean talks about how the year that he finished was an out and back, you know, so there's like an element,
the gold medal route.
Right. So there's an element to him. He's like, well, I still haven't actually gotten to know him. Like, I still want to cross the finish line and actually like get to experience Nome after finishing the race. So yeah, I just think that's unique. 3 different races and you've had 3 different routes. I'm sure other racers or other mushers have had 3 different routes, but it's taken them a lot more races to do that. So just kind of an interesting thing. Some of the other folks that we've talked to have mentioned a lot about how the blowhole in the last run was really treacherous. For you, what was that experience like? Was that similar, or were your dogs just such in good shape that you were just kind of keeping on?
Yeah, I don't know. It was windy. Like, it's always pretty windy. And there was no markers, because you can see where people have just been like sliding sideways and knocking all the markers off and snapping them. So it sort of makes it a little bit more fun, because you get to do a bit of sled driving, trying to avoid the really sharp stakes. But it was the same as it always is, windy and blowing. The Goulburn Bay was pretty, like, coming down into Goulburn Bay, like there's lots of jumble ice and banging and sliding around on that. That was pretty cool. And then Yeah, going into Elam was windy as well, but I don't know, man. It's sort
The
of what
coast.
it's like. Yeah,
Par for the
each
course.
time.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
there's
people blow it up a lot, but maybe I haven't experienced what they have. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen that video that we referred to a lot of Brent last year, maybe, where he was
when his dog
kinda,
sitting in the wind.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like that stuff that you really don't want to get stuck in, and
I went through some wind like that where I couldn't see. That was going into Elam. I'm pretty sure that's when it was really bad at the blowhole for everyone else.
Oh, okay.
Like, and I saw some footage of Matt Hall going through. You couldn't see a thing. Have you seen that from this year? It's just him.
Was it a nighttime or daytime video?
Daytime.
Huh. No, I
So
don't think I have.
It's just him getting blown around and like the dogs, and you can't really see all of the dogs. Like, it's windy. But yeah, it's like that, and I guess that's just part of it. And until you stop, it's not an issue.
Right. And when you stop, that's when the dogs are like, well, I guess it's kind of nap time. It's like almost you got to really like make your stops efficient.
Yeah,
because they're gonna bed down.
Stop, like if you have to stop, you can't find the trail, or you get flipped over and tangled in a tree, or whatever happens. Like, that's just part of the game. But so far that hasn't happened to me because I'm lucky, I guess.
Yeah.
Or it has, and I just kept going. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really think about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's never gonna ever be, and never has, and never will be, just a coastal experience that's just like chill, and it's like 5-mile-an-hour winds, and it's all good. It's like, and that's, I think a lot of mushers and dogs. It's just super stimulating part of trail, where when you have like those runs from Eagle Island, and like a lot of those river miles, and then you get to the coast, and it feels like this.
This year, there's definitely more snow than the 2 years I've done it before, so that makes it a lot easier. There's no snow on the ice on Golovin or in Koya or going to Koya, but it's still all of the land base. There's plenty of snow, so you got traction. It's not. I don't know. I didn't find the coast that difficult.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it seems like that most years there's like going to be sections of maybe it's that you're just your definition of difficult is different from others, could be, and there's also just something to be said for, you got a long race.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said of when you're in a certain situation. Like, for instance, in 2014, Dallas, Jeff, and Ali were getting absolutely pounded in safety in White Mountain before the finish. And I was probably in like Rhone at that stage. I would have been in Uniclete. I think I was in Uniclete because I remember watching it on the thing. And it wasn't that windy, like I went over to Shack and it was blowing, like it was pretty windy, but it wasn't that bad. But then seeing what they went through was like, wow, the storm was a lot worse up there in the same time, And I'm sure the blowhole would have been bad then as well. But you see that little shelter cabin at the blowhole. I've never thought, I need to rescue. I need to stay here. And I'm probably very lucky because a lot of people end up there.
Yeah.
So you get to Nome, and like, are you like, obviously you're tired. You said you weren't that tired, but you're clearly tired after running a race. Like, are you going down and having drinks with some of the other mushers and fans? Like, what's the scene like for you afterwards?
And so I want to second part that question of like, who are one or two of mushers that you really had like a positive encounter with, whether it was after the race or on the trail, that was just like a fun moment or something?
So after the race, a bit of a debrief with Mitch and Danny Seavey. They own the dogs. They want to know what happened when and why, and which dog did the best, that sort of thing. Like, who was a superstar, all those little intricate details that only I would have known. So full debrief with them, trying to get a bit of food into myself. Like, I wasn't eating. I didn't eat that much on the race, and I wasn't that hungry at the end. So it took sort of 48 hours to get my appetite back after the end of the race. Just sort of, I don't know, just how I did it. And, having a few beers, me, Dallas, and Kelly had a few beers a couple of times just over at Kelly's house. And then we had a big poker night. So we had Matt Hall, Ryan Reddington, me, Dallas, Mitch, Kelly, a couple of the other guys. Just big poke around. It was good.
Did you get the dub, dude?
Yeah,
Did you take
come
all
on.
their money?
Who's taking everyone's money?
Well, I took a lot of Ryan's money.
Nice.
But I came out on top because what I do is I bet what I can. No, I didn't win it.
Oh,
I came out on top. I came out on top for me.
Okay.
But like I put, I don't know, $50 in my wallet on top of what I already put in, and then I walked away.
Nice. You didn't lose
I'm
anything.
I'm a safe gambler.
Nice. That's kind of how I do it too. I'm like scared to just lose a bunch of money. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a few nights out, which was fun. Gnome's always fun, but I don't know. I was in a bit of I was a bit disappointed that the team got sick, and I thought I could do better. But I just finished the Iditarod, so you got to revel in it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then
I also had to be like on FaceTime with my wife for like the foreseeable future.
Absolutely. Yeah.
On the trail, it was really cool. I got to hang out with Jesse Royer and Aaron Peck quite a bit. We seemed to be, either I was leaving or they were coming into checkpoints. We get to chat. They were actually both they left while I was hanging out in Shaktoolik. They came, had their rest, and left while I was still resting.
Damn.
Yeah. But I'd already left and come back as well. So there was that.
That is true.
But yeah, I got to hang out with them. They're really cool, really nice people. I get along with both of them. They're great. And then we did the same in White Mountain. We were all there. And then I think we came 13th, 14th, and 15th, respectively, which was nice.
Yep.
Yeah. Jess is a really lovely lady. She's I got to tell her that I didn't really know the dogs' names and just doing what I could, making it down the trail, and she thought it was hilarious. And she had a good team, but she had quite a few injuries coming into Nikolai through all those bumps, like shoulders and wrists. So from there, for her, she was just in maintain mode as well. Right. So it was cool to just chat to her about that along the trail.
And she had a relatively young team too, didn't she?
I think, yeah, both old and young, like missing that middle core. Right.
Nice.
Well, I feel like we're coming up on close to an hour. So Sean and I, we could talk for another hour with you, honestly. But I do want to respect your time. So do we have any did you have any questions, Sean, that you want to ask post race? Obviously you did your gnome thing, and then you pretty much a couple days later you're back to Australia and living life with your wife.
So
and
I flew the night at the banquet. Pretty sure. Yeah.
Dude, that's gotta be so fucking weird to be sitting in the plane just with a bunch of people. And you're just you guys would never believe how my week just went.
Oh no, on that plane it's not, because next we've got all the other mushes. But
right.
So I caught that plane, got into Anchorage at 1 a.m. or whatever it was. The next morning I flew to Seattle to Hawaii to Sydney to Brisbane to Mackay, all connecting flights with ridiculous layovers. I think I was in Hawaii for 18 hours, and eventually, I just went from sleep deprivation to sleep deprivation, and then made it home to a screaming baby.
Living the dream.
But getting home and seeing the baby had to be a really special embrace, right?
Yes, that's what I was expecting. I was expecting this Sound of Music type, me running and her waddling, a hug. But what I got was her just looking at me like, "Who are you? Who's this guy?" Because she started to realize her surroundings, whereas I left and she was just a baby, like a blob.
Right.
And then for the next 48 hours, I would like walk past in the house and she'd just death stare me like, "Who are you?" She really took a while to warm up.
You seeing this guy? You seeing this guy, Mom? I don't know who this guy is.
Yeah, like what's this random dude in our house doing, just wandering around? What the hell? But no, she definitely warmed up after that, and it was great to be home. And back into it. Like I think I had 2 or 3 days to acclimatize again, and then straight back into work.
How is it like? Do people know like your little like alternative lifestyle? Like, are you like, you go back to work and you're like,
I sort of keep it like a little bit incognito, I guess, like under wraps.
I can picture you going into work and just being like, "Hey, Nancy," and it's like, "Oh,
hey guys, I'm back.
Hey, Christian, how's it going?" You're like, "Oh, pretty good. It's kind of a long week, but whatever."
That would be good, but I work by myself, so I'd just be talking to myself.
Okay. Okay, gotcha.
But I keep it pretty incognito because I don't know. I think it's just my personality. I don't really enjoy talking about it because it's the same things over and over with everyone.
Well, I appreciate you talking with us, man.
Well, damn. Wow.
No. I mean, like maybe I just don't like talking to Australians. The same question, like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you do that. How'd you get into it?" Or, "That's amazing. What got you started?" All these same questions. And after the first 3 people, it's the same answers.
Right. I definitely since Brennan and I at least have a pretty good understanding of the basics of things, it's like, we can skip those questions of like, so like, where do you fly out how do you fly out all the gear? Do you carry it with you the whole way? Those questions you're gonna always get.
Do you have all the stuff in your sled? Where do your dogs live?
It's okay to ask the questions, we're not I want to fully shit on people that do that, but it just, it does get, it's like, if you're not getting paid to answer the questions, sometimes it gets a little.
Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe I'm just an introvert. That probably is it. Like I'm just quiet. But yeah, I love people following the race and wanting to know more about it. That's the best part about the race. There's no way to know everything about it. Like even Mitch says every race there's more you can learn. So
that's true.
And he's like, I don't know, he's basically turning into the Iditarod Trail. He's getting so old and he's done it so many times.
I'll share that clip with him next time I see him.
Yeah, definitely do. No, but I love the Iditarod and I love the people that do it. It's far out. There's no other thing I would just drop and stop my life for and go and spend 7 weeks to be miserable for.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, that's a pretty wild to do that. And I'm sure if another chance comes up and you can pull it off, you'll take it. But who knows if that'll happen. But yeah, man, we really appreciate you coming and being an extrovert with us for an hour. And it's fun chatting with you, man. I've never gotten to hang out with you too much, but we got a lot of mutual friends, and it was fun getting to bullshit with you for a little bit.
I don't know. I don't know. You let me know if you think this is the right in saying it. But I think with mushers, you either have the people that everyone spends so much time with the dogs alone. And you get some people like, as I would say, you and Dallas, for instance, that have spent so long by themselves, not talking to the dogs, that they just want to explode and talk more and more about it with people. And they just really enjoy talking. And I think then there's the other smaller minority of people that spend so much time with the dogs that they get used to just being quiet. And
I would say that if I like some names that come to mind, like that would be more on the Christian Turner side of things, would be like a Ramey Smith or a Dan Caduce or those guys here. You don't hear they're Dallas. He also he hits his limit eventually too. And I think so do I. But I do enjoy talking. That's why we have a podcast.